Hi there, this is Jen, and thanks so much for joining me on the Whimsy channel today. Today I'm working with this cute little guy. His name is Freddie, and I am going to be going for a sepia tone card. So I'm using a piece of Strathmore mixed media tone tan paper, and the reason I'm using a mixed media paper is because I will be doing watercoloring. Since mixed media paper can withstand some water use, this is a good paper to use that's in a tone that's different than a white cardstock. And since this is a red rubber stamp, I have removed the piece of black foam from my Misty, and I will be inking this up in some Versafine Sepia to give me that sepia tone. But if you don't have the sepia in this brand, you can use a brown ink depending on what medium you're using to color your image. Either a dye ink or an archival ink would work great as well. And I decided I struggle with coloring, and so I decided to go ahead and kind of use the packaging that came with the stamp for reference for my coloring as far as where the highlights are and where the darker areas should be. So I'm going to have that out and I'm going to be referring to that as I color my image. But before I color my image, I'm going to use some masking fluid because this little character has a bunch of little intricate pieces, the horns, where the heart is, that I felt would be difficult for me to cut out using masking paper. And so what I did was I just put a little bit of that liquid masking fluid onto a piece of paper, and I'm taking a brush and just basically painting over the image. And what this does is it creates a seal over your image so that you can layer other things on top, whether you're going to use a stamp or a stencil. In my case, I'm going to use a stencil. And then it will basically act the same as a paper mask. And once the image has dried, which takes probably about 15 minutes to a half an hour, it will be a little bit tacky. So if you touch it and it's not like coming up on your finger, but it's a little bit tacky, that is totally fine. And next I'm going to take this bubble heart stencil and some peppermint scrub ink and blend that ink right through the stencil, and the masking fluid is going to do its job and act as a mask, and none of the stencil area will get on my image so that I can color him up. And to remove the masking fluid is super easy. You're just basically going to rub against the image, and the adhesive or the masking fluid will just roll up in little balls, and you can see that the image is perfectly clear with none of that stencil on it. And to color this image up, I'm going to be using some brush markers, and the brush markers are water-based liquid inks. And so they're very pigmented and the color comes out super nicely. And the colors that I'm using for the main body portion of this little character are the sepia and the henna colors. And I am just coloring directly onto the image with the brush marker. And where I'm putting the line of color is where I want the shadow to be. And then I will take my water brush and some water and move that color out. And that will be basically where the highlight is. And I color like this normally when I'm using markers or brush markers. But again, I'm using the reference from the package. It is super helpful, especially if you're unsure of where to put the highlights and the shadows. The packaging for this was really helpful in helping to determine that, kind of takes the guesswork out of that. And so I'm just going to continue on and color the entire image. I do also go over the image with some colored pencils just to bring out a little bit more detail in the image. And then I created another mask using the wonky stitched rectangle die, and I am using a paper mask this time. And so I'm going to take that mask and cover up the image so it just leaves a little bit of a frame around the outside. And then I'm taking some vintage photo distress ink and my ink blending tool, and I will go ahead and add that to all the corners, and it creates a really nice dark kind of vintagey frame. And of course I have to spritz that and get those watermarks. And then I take the ink and go back over it a little bit more after that. And then once I pull up that masking paper, it just leaves my little image and the center of the panel framed out really nicely. To finish the card off, I added a sentiment, sending smiles across the miles, and it happened to fit perfectly in that frame, so I was super happy about that. And then I added a few sequins and some highlights with my white Posca pen, and that finishes the card off. I hope you enjoyed. If you did like this video or find it informative, please go ahead and give a thumbs up. As always, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with us over here on the Whimsy channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. There's lots of inspiration on the Whimsy Facebook page and Pinterest. So all the links for that will be below, as well as the links for the products that I used today. Thanks so much again, and I hope to see you next time.